The next morning, as the first rays of sunlight began to warm the earth, Wamba and Danso slowly made their way back to the palace. They walked hand in hand, their fingers intertwined, taking in the peace of the early morning. The kingdom was just beginning to wake up, the streets still quiet, save for the occasional sound of merchants setting up their stalls. The air was cool, carrying the scent of morning dew, and the sky was painted in soft hues of orange and pink as the sun slowly climbed its way into the horizon. As they strolled in silence, Wamba glanced at Danso and noticed him walking with a slight stiffness, his steps less confident than usual. Concern flickered in Wamba's chest, and he gently squeezed Danso's hand before leaning closer. "Are you okay?" Wamba asked softly, his voice filled with tenderness. Danso hesitated, his expression turning shy as he looked down at the ground. "I'm fine," he mumbled. Wamba's heart warmed with both affection and concern. He slowed his pace, letting his gaze linger on Danso's face. Without saying a word, he stopped in his tracks and turned toward Danso, his eyes full of warmth. "You don't have to push yourself," Wamba murmured, his hand brushing lightly against Danso's arm. "Let me carry you." Danso's eyes widened, and a shy smile tugged at the corners of his lips. "You don't have to, really. It's not that bad. It's just a little discomfort," he said softly, trying to brush it off. "I'm getting used to it." Wamba smiled tenderly, shaking his head. "I know, but I still want to," he insisted, bending down in front of Danso and motioning for him to climb onto his back. "You're uncomfortable, and I won't let you walk all the way back if I can help it." Danso's face grew warm with embarrassment, and he hesitated for a moment before finally giving in. With a soft chuckle, he carefully climbed onto Wamba's back, wrapping his arms around Wamba's neck. The closeness made his heart race, but there was something deeply comforting about being held like this, about knowing that Wamba would take care of him. Wamba stood up with ease, his grip secure as he carried Danso across the quiet path. "You're lighter than I thought," Wamba teased softly, glancing over his shoulder with a playful grin. Danso laughed, his breath warm against Wamba's neck. "You make me feel weightless." They continued walking, Wamba's step steady and sure, the warmth of their connection radiating between them. "You are more precious to me than anything, Danso," Wamba whispered, his voice so soft it was almost lost in the wind. Danso rested his cheek against Wamba's shoulder, his heart swelling with love. "You are precious to me too." The moment was perfect, gentle, intimate, filled with the kind of affection that made the world feel brighter. But as they neared the palace, Wamba noticed something strange. The gates were wide open, and several of the king's guards were stationed just outside, their faces tense. His heart skipped a beat, and his steps quickened. "What's going on?" Wamba muttered, his mind racing. Had something happened? Had someone been hurt? But as they stepped through the gates, it became clear that the commotion was about them. Inside the palace courtyard, people were bustling about, the air tense with worry. Servants hurried past with anxious faces, and Wamba could hear murmurs of his name on their lips. His stomach twisted as he gently set Danso down. In the center of it all stood Kwame and King Adebayo, their faces etched with concern. They were speaking with a group of guards, their voices low and urgent. The moment Kwame's eyes landed on Wamba and Danso approaching, he froze, his expression shifting from worry to shock and then to overwhelming relief. "Wamba!" Kwame called out, his voice shaking as he rushed forward. Before Wamba could even comprehend what was happening, both Kwame and King Adebayo were upon him, pulling him into a tight embrace. Their arms wrapped around him with such force that it almost knocked the breath out of him, but Wamba didn't mind. The warmth of their embrace, the way their hands clung to him as if afraid to let go, filled his heart with a mixture of confusion and overwhelming emotion. "We were so worried," Kwame whispered, his voice thick with emotion as he buried his face in Wamba's shoulder. "We thought you had run away." Wamba stood there, frozen in their embrace, unable to speak for a moment. He could feel Kwame's arms trembling around him, could hear the raw fear in his voice, and for the first time in almost a day, Wamba felt a wave of relief wash over him. They hadn't been angry with him. They hadn't been disappointed. They had been terrified of losing him. I'm sorry," Wamba finally managed to say, his voice hoarse as he blinked back tears. "I didn't mean to worry you." King Adebayo stepped back slightly, his large hands still resting on Wamba's shoulders, his eyes filled with both relief and reprimand. "We thought something had happened to you," he said quietly. "You disappeared and no one could find you." "I'm sorry," Wamba repeated, his voice barely a whisper. "We just needed some time." As Kwame and King Adebayo stepped back, Wamba's gaze shifted toward Danso, who had been standing quietly to the side, watching the reunion. There was a brief moment of hesitation in the air, but then, to Wamba's surprise, King Adebayo's expression softened as he looked at Danso. "And you," King Adebayo said, his voice firm but not unkind. "You had us worried too." Danso bowed his head slightly, guilt flickering across his face. "I'm sorry, Your Majesty. It wasn't our intention to cause trouble." Kwame wiped his face, his eyes red, and he stepped forward again, placing a hand on Wamba's cheek. His voice trembled as he spoke. I thought you had left because of me, because I yelled at you." Wamba's heart clenched at the pain in Kwame's voice, and without thinking, he reached up and took his father's hand in his own. "No, Papa, I didn't leave because of you. I was just scared." Kwame nodded, his eyes searching Wamba's face. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I should never have spoken to you like that. I was angry, but not at you." "I know," Wamba whispered back, his voice soft, filled with understanding. Kwame pulled him into another embrace, and this time Wamba hugged him back, feeling the weight of the last few hours lifting from his shoulders. He hadn't realized just how much he had needed this reassurance, this love from his parents. He hadn't realized how scared he had been that he might lose it. King Adebayo watched them with soft eyes, and when they finally pulled away, he stepped forward, his gaze serious but kind. "You're not in trouble," he said gently. "But next time, please tell us where you're going. We can't lose you, Wamba. We love you too much." Wamba nodded, his throat tight with emotion. "I will." There was a brief silence, a moment of calm after the storm, and then Kwame's gaze shifted toward Danso. The air grew tense again, but this time it wasn't the tension of anger. It was something more complicated, something that Wamba knew needed to be addressed. "Papa," Wamba began hesitantly, his voice soft, almost pleading. "We need to talk about everything." Kwame's expression tightened, but he nodded, his eyes shifting between Wamba and Danso. "Yes," he said quietly, "we do." They moved into the palace, walking through the grand halls until they reached a quiet room where they could speak privately. Danso followed silently, sensing the gravity of the moment, but knowing this conversation wasn't his to lead. Once they were seated, Kwame's eyes were filled with a mix of concern and love as he looked at Wamba. "I never expected this," he admitted, glancing between Wamba and Danso. "You and Danso. I didn't see it coming. Wamba's heart pounded in his chest, but he nodded slowly. Neither did I, Papa. It just happened, but we love each other. Kwame's gaze flickered to Danso, his expression unreadable, before he turned back to Wamba. Do you understand how dangerous this is? His voice was quiet, but firm. King Kofi, he won't accept this. He will do whatever it takes to protect his legacy, and you know what that means, Danso. Kwame looked at his cousin pointedly before turning his gaze back to Wamba. And it's not just that. Danso is your uncle, Wamba. Wamba blinked, his voice incredulous. No, he's not. He's only a year older than me, Papa, and we're not related by blood. He's not really my uncle. Kwame's expression tightened. Are you saying that Adebayo and I are not really your parents? His voice carried a note of hurt. Wamba's heart clenched. You know that's not what I mean, Papa. It's just different. Kwame sighed, rubbing his temples as if the weight of it all was pressing too hard. I know, but it's more than that, Wamba. You don't understand what kind of man King Kofi is. The two of you cannot be together as long as that man breathes. And Wamba, your father and I only want what's best for you. We just want you to be safe. Wamba's voice was small but certain. But you and Papa, you fought for your love. You stood against the whole world. Am I not allowed to be brave like you? Kwame's face softened and King Adebayo chimed in. It's not that, Wamba. We're not against you two being together, but the reality is, King Kofi will stop at nothing to protect his reputation. It's dangerous and we're scared for both of you. Wamba's eyes filled with tears. But I love him, Papa, he whispered. I don't want to lose him. Kwame reached out, resting his hand on Wamba's shoulder. We don't want you to lose him either, but it won't be easy, Wamba. King Adebayo nodded in agreement, his voice gentle but firm. Your Papa is right, Wamba. We want you to be happy, but we also want you to be safe. Wamba bit his lip, his heart heavy with the weight of their words. He looked at Danso, who had been silent but attentive throughout the conversation, and saw the same fear mirrored in his eyes. I overheard you, Wamba said quietly, his voice shaking slightly. I heard you arguing yesterday about a biological child. I thought it meant you didn't love Arewa and me anymore. Kwame shook his head, his voice pained. It's not about that. We love you both more than anything. King Adebayo stepped forward, his voice firm but gentle. We're going through something, Wamba, but it doesn't change how we feel about you and Arewa. Wamba nodded, tears of relief streaming down his face as he looked between his parents. I was so scared, he whispered. King Adebayo pulled him into a hug. You never have to be scared of that, Wamba. We are your parents for life, and nothing can change that. After a moment, Kwame's voice softened. Why didn't you tell us you were gay, Wamba? Wamba hesitated. I wasn't sure, he admitted. I didn't know how to say it until I met Danso. Everything made sense after that. Kwame's gaze grew tender and Adebayo nodded in quiet understanding. We're always here for you, Kwame said, no matter what. And in that moment, Wamba felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that he had their love and support. The afternoon sun bathed the palace courtyard in a golden light as Wamba and Danso made their way back from one of the many tours Wamba had taken Danso on through the kingdom. Wamba's mood had lightened since the talk with Kwame and King Adebayo, but one unresolved tension still weighed on Danso's heart: Arewa. Since arriving at the palace, Arewa had made it painfully clear that she did not approve of him. Her cold glares, snide comments, and general avoidance had not gone unnoticed by Danso. It stung, especially knowing how much Wamba adored his little sister. Danso knew that if he wanted to be truly a part of Wamba's life, he had to find a way to win Arewa over. "She's still angry with me, isn't she?" Danso asked, glancing at Wamba as they walked. Wamba smiled softly, though there was a touch of sympathy in his eyes. "Arewa has never had to share me with anyone before. It's hard for her, but she'll come around. You just have to be patient." Danso frowned. "I don't want her to hate me." "She doesn't hate you," Wamba reassured him, gently squeezing his hand. "She's just figuring things out. You're not used to little sisters, are you?" Danso chuckled lightly. "No, I'm an only child." Wamba stopped walking and turned to face him, his expression filled with understanding. "Just give her time, and maybe try to do something nice for her. Show her that you care about her too." Danso nodded, determined. He would find a way to win Arewa over, no matter what it took. He loved Wamba, and he was willing to fight for his family's acceptance. Later that day, Danso found himself wandering the palace halls, lost in thought. He had overheard the servants talking about a special delivery in the gardens, and he decided to take advantage of the opportunity. After some convincing, he managed to procure a small bouquet of flowers, a gesture that he hoped would soften Arewa's heart. He found her sitting in one of the palace courtyards, playing with a few pebbles as she absently kicked at the sand. Her usual mischievous energy seemed subdued, and Danso saw this as his chance. Taking a deep breath, he approached her slowly. "Arewa?" he called softly. Arewa looked up, her eyes narrowing when she saw him. She said nothing, just stared at him with that same wary look she had given him since the moment they met. Danso knelt in front of her, holding out the small bouquet of flowers. "These are for you," he said, his voice soft, almost hopeful. "I know I've not made the best impression, but I want us to be friends." Arewa stared at the flowers for a long moment, her face unreadable. Then, without warning, she crossed her arms and turned her back on him. "I don't want your flowers," she said sharply. Danso blinked, feeling the sting of rejection, but he wasn't ready to give up just yet. "I know I've been spending a lot of time with your brother," he continued, "but I didn't mean to take him away from you. I care about Wamba a lot, but I care about you too." Arewa glanced over her shoulder, her expression skeptical. "Why should I believe you?" Danso sighed, lowering the bouquet to his side. "Because Wamba loves you more than anyone else in the world. And if I want to be in his life, I have to be in yours too. I don't want to come between you two." Arewa remained silent for a moment, then stood abruptly, brushing off her dress. "You think flowers will fix everything?" she asked, her tone sharp. "You think just because you say nice things, I'm going to like you?" Danso stood as well, feeling a flicker of frustration. "No, but I'm trying." She glared at him, her small hands clenched into fists. "Well, stop trying. I'm not going to change my mind." Danso's heart sank at her words. He took a deep breath, then offered her a small smile. "All right, but I'm not giving up on you." Arewa walked away, leaving. Danso standing there, the flowers still clutched in his hand. Over the next few days, Danso made several attempts to win Arewa over, each time with little success. He took her on what could only be described as childish dates, buying her sweets from the market, taking her to watch the local dancers, and even writing her little notes with hand-drawn flowers on them. But no matter what he did, Arewa remained unimpressed. Wamba found the whole situation amusing as he watched Danso try and fail to break through Arewa's defenses. "She's stubborn," Wamba teased one afternoon as they sat on the roof together, looking out at the kingdom. "But don't worry, she'll come around." Danso sighed, running a hand over his face. She's tougher to win over than you were. Wamba grinned. That's because I'm easy. Danso chuckled, though the frustration of his effort still lingered. Ah, I just wish I knew how to soften her little heart. But things took a turn when one day Arewa decided to set a trap for Danso. It was a quiet afternoon, and Danso had just finished having lunch with Wamba when he decided to take a walk through the palace. As he strolled through one of the long corridors, he didn't notice the small pool of liquid that Arewa had strategically poured on the floor just moments earlier. Danso's foot slipped, and before he knew what was happening, he was tumbling to the ground, landing hard on his leg. A sharp pain shot through him, and he winced, gritting his teeth as he tried to push himself up. From the shadows, Arewa watched with a mischievous grin, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. She had finally succeeded in bringing down the boy who had stolen her brother away. But as she watched Danso struggle to stand, her grin slowly faded. There was something about the way he winced in pain, the way he bit back his groans, that made her feel guilty. Before she could process the feeling, Wamba appeared, rushing down the corridor with a look of pure panic on his face. Danso! Arewa froze, watching as Wamba ran to Danso's side, his face twisted with worry. Wamba knelt beside him, his hands trembling as he tried to help Danso up. Are you okay? What happened? I slipped, Danso muttered, wincing as he tried to stand. I'm fine. Just a little fall. Wamba's face was filled with concern as he wrapped his arm around Danso, helping him to his feet. But his gaze quickly shifted to the small puddle on the floor and then to the shadows where Arewa stood, her eyes wide with guilt. Arewa, Wamba said, his voice low and full of disappointment. Did you do this? For the first time, Arewa looked down, shame flickering across her face. She bit her lip, refusing to meet her brother's gaze. Why would you do that? Wamba asked, his voice strained with hurt. Arewa shifted on her feet, her fingers twisting the fabric of her dress. I didn't mean for him to get hurt, she mumbled. I just wanted him to go away. Wamba's expression softened slightly, but there was still a sadness in his eyes as he looked at his little sister. Arewa, you can't keep doing this. Danso isn't going anywhere. He's my very good friend. Arewa finally looked up, her lower lip trembling. But you're always with him now. You don't play with me anymore. Emotion gripped Wamba's heart, and he knelt down in front of her, gently taking her small hands in his. I'm sorry, Arewa. I didn't realize I was making you feel that way. But you're my sister, and I love you more than anything. That will never change. Arewa blinked back tears, and for a moment she looked like the little girl Wamba had always known, vulnerable and scared of losing the one person she loved most. I'm sorry, she whispered, glancing at Danso with genuine regret. I didn't mean to hurt you. Danso, still leaning on Wamba for support, managed a small smile. It's okay. I'm tougher than I look. Arewa wiped her eyes, then looked back at Danso. Can we strike a deal? Danso raised an eyebrow. A deal? Arewa nodded, her tone serious. You can spend time with Wamba, but I get to spend time with him too, like 80% of the time. Danso couldn't help but chuckle at her boldness. 80%? Arewa crossed her arms, her expression determined. Yes, and you get 20%. Danso laughed despite his pain and shook his head. All right, deal. Arewa smiled, her mischievous spark returning. Good. With the deal struck, Danso felt a wave of relief wash over him. Arewa's acceptance, though not fully earned yet, was a step in the right direction. and for the first time since arriving at the palace, he felt like he was truly becoming part of Wamba's family.